Welcome to the Insomnia Coach podcast. My name is Martin Reed. I believe that nobody needs to live with chronic insomnia and that cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBT-I techniques, can help you enjoy better sleep for the rest of your life. Like many people, David struggled with the odd night of poor sleep every now and again. But 3 years ago, a night of absolutely no sleep led to sleep-related worry and the fear that he had lost the ability to sleep. This led to more nights of bad sleep and many nights of no sleep whatsoever, and this compounded the problem. Eventually, David discovered that it was his worry and obsession with sleep that was perpetuating his insomnia. His recognition of this, along with the implementation of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, CBT-I, and mindfulness techniques, helped him get his sleep back on track. A full transcript of this podcast can be found at insomniacoach.com/podcast. So first of all, David, thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Okay, thank you.
So let's start right at the beginning. Tell us a bit about when sleep became a problem for you. Are you able to recall what initially triggered your insomnia, and how long ago did this all begin for you?
Well, in a major way, it started about 3 years ago, actually, around now. Yeah, 2 years, 11 months, 3 years ago. And I had occasional problems with not being able to sleep very well before that, you know. Mm-hmm. From the odd night, but the first time was about half a year before it started in a big way, and I went through a whole night without any sleep. But there'd been a few times as I was growing up when I couldn't sleep for a long time. You know, and the funny thing was, my dad was suffering from insomnia, and I think I heard him not talk about it when I was young, little. I mean, from the age of about 8, and I think that was in the back of my mind. But the thing that really started it in the modern time, so just 3 years ago, was I had this asthma developed. I never had asthma before, and it was just crazy. And I thought, well, what is this? And I'd go and play football. So I play football a couple of times a week, and I would really struggle to be breathing after it, you know. And I thought, and eventually, and this went on for quite a while, and then it got really bad, and I found I couldn't sleep through the night. And I was also quite worried about it, and it took bit longer than it should do to sort of figure out what it was, and I was all a bit shocked to have asthma anyway. I'd never had it before. And so I had my first proper, I had another a night with no sleep at all, and then I had a couple of these. And that seemed to, and I got the asthma sorted out, but the sleep problem remained, and I'd have the occasional nights where, well, sometimes a bit more than occasional, where I'd have a whole night where I didn't sleep at all. And I'm beginning to think I've lost the ability to sleep, you know. So anyway, that was the start of it, and that was about 3 years ago now that it started, and it started with asthma. Although I had the occasional night of non-sleep before that, but not very many, and that was when it started, and you know, and it got quite bad. Started getting quite bad then.
Yeah. So, you know, it's quite a typical pattern. A lot of people can identify, you know, that first night or that first string of nights and recognize the worry that caused. And that thought, you know, have I lost the ability to sleep? That is just so common, you know, and I just think that thought alone just really perpetuates sleep issues for so many people. So I think it's really helpful that you just even use that as an example, just so we can reassure people who are listening to this podcast that we never lose the ability to sleep. You know, we can definitely make sleep more difficult for ourselves. You know, when we're anxious about things or when we have high levels of stress, it's definitely more difficult to sleep. And that's actually intentional. It's like the body's way of protecting us from a perceived threat. You know, it's kind of this evolutionary reservation of powers, so to speak. You know, like you don't want to be falling asleep if you're in a cave with a saber-toothed tiger around outside, you know. So as soon as you feel worried, the brain will kind of suspend suspend sleep, but we never lose that ability. You know, eventually, even if we have no sleep, like 0 minutes of sleep for, let's say, 4 days, we will eventually sleep at some point, because it's just a core biological function that we never lose the ability to sleep.
You know what? Actually, you really hit on the head there. In fact, that statement that you've made, or some of them, that you cannot lose the ability to sleep. You will sleep in the end. It's natural, no matter how stressed you get, how worried you're, anything. Core biological function, all that stuff you just said. That was, I mean, there's not that many things. I've read an awful lot. I'm a voracious reader. I'm a writer as well. Maybe you'll mention that later and plug me up a little bit.
Absolutely.
But I've researched what is going on. And one of the things was, you wrote that, and it's so true. And it's, because I thought I had lost the ability to sleep. And I kind of believed your words, but in the end, the thing that convinced me, Martin, I hate to say this, was I took suffering for having gone through this frequent nights of little sleep for 2.5 years, and I eventually thought, you know what, if I don't sleep one night at all, I will sleep the next. And I just thought, and I wrote down a little diary, and every time it happened, I just could not keep my eyes away. But I realized you cannot lose the ability to sleep, and it's... you're right, and if you don't, you just have to the next day get through it. I got the ability, and the ability to sleep will come. It will come, and it's so true what you say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like there's that silver lining, because when we're up at night struggling with sleep, it's awful, right? But we have I just want to share that knowledge, that every night of struggle, like if let's say there's a string of bad nights, it just exponentially, it just compounds and increases the chance of sleep coming on the next night. It just becomes more and more likely, because that sleep drive is always building. The only time that it might continue to be a problem is if you try compensating for that bad night of sleep, by maybe lying in bed all day the next day, or just trying to conserve energy, or cancelling plans, just because then you might just start to reduce that sleep drive through inactivity, or you might nap during the day, and that kind of just keeps you firmly grounded in square one. So it really is a case of just trying to keep your days as normal as possible and just rely on your body's natural ability to sleep, which never ever goes away.
Totally agree. In fact, one of the things you can actually do after a night of nil sleep, I've started at the point where I think, you know what, I can actually look forward to it tonight, because actually eventually I realised I couldn't get 2 in a row. I do read, by the way, on your forum, sadly there are a few people who claim they get 2 in a row, but I never had. And I could then look forward every night of no sleep, or the longer you didn't sleep, the more likely it was. But it took me, actually, despite your words, it took me years, 2 years and a bit, 2.5 years, to realise, that's just so true, because it's happening every time. Didn't sleep one night, or had very little sleep, I would always just keel right over and sleep the next one.
Yeah, and that's normal, because when we have insomnia, or anytime we're dealing with a problem, our brain wants to just focus on that problem. It very rarely looks at the bigger picture, so when we have this fear that we've lost our ability to sleep, that's what our brain will focus on. And it takes like a conscious effort. Even if we read stuff, it still takes a conscious effort for us to take that step back and think, all right, well, is this really accurate? Have I actually lost my ability to sleep? And look for evidence that you haven't, because all your brain wants to do is look for evidence that you have and kind of problem solve based on that. So it really does take this conscious effort, and it can take time just to have that kind of breakthrough, insightful moment. Like you described, it took a couple of years for you to just recognize that.
My wife would tell me, you're going to sleep tonight. I wouldn't believe it. Eventually, of course, it was so true. And I started doing this diary, and then I would write down what happened when I did. And I just, you know what, I wrote it down. You just could not keep your eyes open. You tried to sit up and watch something exciting, watching a football match on the telly, but you'd fall asleep. It would just take you over, because you can't go I couldn't go 2 nights with no sleep. Eventually, the sleep drive would come. And once I realised that was part of it, that was part of the path to redemption, actually, and to making life better.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that, 3 years ago, it stemmed from this one night, and it kind of snowballed from there. What do you think kind of progressed it? Because we all have bad nights every now and then, right? What do you think progressed it from just like this 1 or 2 bad nights to becoming a problem that lasted, in your case, for a number of years?
I think I just spend the next whole day thinking about it. I'd always feel after a night of nil sleep, I'd always feel quite bad. I feel like there's tightness in the chest and everything. And of course, it's hard not to think about that, and particularly in the early part of the day, it would be this feeling of, actually feeling quite depressed, really, and this tightness in the chest, and then thinking about it, what's it going to be like? What's it going to be like tonight? And this exacerbated it. I think all that did exacerbate it, really, and that's what made it worse. And then, I got, and the worst it was, it's sometimes of the 8 or 9 nights in a month where I didn't sleep at all, nil sleep. To be specific about it, because I do realize that some people think they have a problem if they've got like 5 hours, and other people seriously have even worse than me, but ultimately you do sleep in the end. But that was how it got. It went on, there was a few months, it varied up and down, and, sometimes 5 nil sleep nights in a month, sometimes the highest was 9, and I think like most people that are stuck with insomnia, because I relentlessly, we'll talk about it, I'm sure, control things. I write it all down, a record of it. Everything was recorded down. It's like,
right.
Probably not a very wise thing to do, but I did.
I think, again, that's just one of these normal things, as soon as we become concerned about something, it's just natural that we want to either record it so we can notice trends, and analyze it, spend a lot of time thinking about it. I think that's all completely normal, but it's definitely something that when it comes to sleep, it can often be unconstructive, because the more time we think about sleep, it kind of implies we're kind of training ourselves that sleep is something that we can control, when really we can't. We can set the stage for sleep, but in terms of I'm going to click my fingers and make myself fall asleep, and I'm going to sleep X number of hours, wake X number of times during the night, and wake at X time in the morning on the dot. We have no control over any of that. And so it's normal to have these thoughts, and that tightness in the chest and this feeling of a depressed mood. That's all really actually quite normal too, because we often will monitor for the results of a bad night of sleep. So if we have a bad night or no sleep, as you experienced, then we monitor our body, like, okay, that was an awful night. How am I feeling? And you're actually specifically looking for these effects in your body. We can, when we do that, we can notice things that we've never noticed before. Some people describe it, as that tightness in the chest. Others describe it as, I found my breathing was really weird, because you're paying more attention to how you breathe, you're focusing your attention on every in-breath and every out-breath, and maybe trying to pace it or control it. And, and so you just become this hyper-aware, it's this hyper-arousal, which is present in every case of insomnia. And so, as I think you recognize, you're focusing on that, and that just increases your worry about sleep, and you think more about sleep, and maybe even just become more obsessive about sleep, and that ends up just compounding the problem and making sleep more difficult.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely right. And I should, by the way, add that there were 3 other, I suppose, pillars really that helped. I just think there might be others, but I think I like many aspects of cognitive behavior therapy for insomnia, especially sleep restriction. When it was very bad, keeping the sleep restriction, it's paradoxical, but that helped. But I also like adding into the CBT-I and sleep restriction approach, which I'm sure you'll talk about in a minute, was also a big chunk of sort of, mindfulness, or sort of acceptance commitment therapy, but basically it's mindfulness. And there's some principles of that as well. That all helped too. Combining all that together, that all was all a good help.
Yeah,
I think it's all good.
I definitely want to talk more about that. In a previous podcast episode, I spoke to a psychologist specifically about ACT, or this acceptance and commitment therapy, and how to kind of use it in conjunction with CBT-I. And I thought that he gave this really good, his name was Nick Wignall, he gave this really good insight where he kind of associated like CBT-I as like the core, that's like the foundation. That's where it's usually very helpful to start. And then with ACT, with ACT, it's kind of this more advanced level. Because with ACT, it's more accepting your current circumstances, right? So if you're having a night where you can't sleep, it's more a case of, okay, look, I have no control over this. I'm struggling to sleep right now, and just kind of being comfortable with your current
Yeah.
situation and your current thoughts. And for someone that's been suffering with insomnia, if that's the first thing you tell them to do, I think that's a really hard
Yeah.
it's a hard sell, to say, oh, you have insomnia, that's okay, just accept it and welcome it. So I think that it is really helpful when used in conjunction with CBTI. And I'm kind of finding that reading in the Insomnia Coach forum too. The people that tend to be successful with ACT are the people that started out with CBTI or are combining some elements of CBTI with the acceptance techniques.
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I always think, I must plug this, but I think it's good. This is John Kabat-Zinn video, 28-minute one, and it's John Kabat-Zinn talking about 7 attitudes of mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And I went on an 8-week course all about mindfulness, and it was all right. Mm-hmm. And I'd go up there every Saturday up to central London and do it. And so, but really, that 28-minute video about 7 attitudes of mindfulness really helps. But you're right, I did add that on after doing a bit of CBT-I. I love the CBT-I things. It's good. And with a sleep restriction as well, when it was bad, to build up my sleep drive. And the key elements for mindfulness was acceptance, as you say, non-controlling, letting go, being in the moment and trusting in yourself. And once you read about that, it's just like, it really helps to add on. I think it goes really well with CBT-I, actually. It does. I mean, it doesn't contradict it. It's just, it's an additional thing. But I think you're probably right. It's quite hard to just say, oh, well, just accept it, isn't it? For someone who's really struggling. Yeah, right. Oh, you've got cancer, just accept it. Mind you, you've got it. Sometimes, here's the thing, though. So, insomnia, just go, oh, you've got insomnia. It could be worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be the C, and it isn't. So, in some ways, accepting it is maybe part of that.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point, because every now and then I'll get an email from someone and they'll say, well, I've heard of ACT, ACT, what should I do? Is it better to go with CBT or ACT? So many acronyms. And I say, well, they're really actually quite similar. It's only really is the stimulus control component, which tends to be different, so with CBTI, generally speaking, we say if you're in bed tossing and turning, feeling anxious and frustrated, it's usually best to remove yourself from that situation and just get out of bed until you feel relaxed and sleepy again before returning to bed. Whereas ACT is more about kind of accepting the current situation, just seeing if sleep returns. But the way I tend to implement these CBTI techniques in relation to stimulus control is I like to start people with get out of bed if you're finding it really difficult and you're feeling uncomfortable and stressed and frustrated and anxious. But if you are feeling calm, then there's no need to get out of bed. So it's really, they're really quite similar in that regard, I think. And to think that it has to be one or the other is the wrong way of approaching it. I think they both are really complementary to one another.
Totally agree. Here in Britain, under our National Health Service, because I've been through that too with them, 2 sessions of this, they don't have any of this. They just say you should get out of bed, and I think it depends on the person and how you feel, as you said. But here in Britain, they follow this Colin Epsey's approach in this book, Overcoming Insomnia, and I've got a couple of issues with some of the things in this book, but one of the things is, you should always get out of bed after 15 minutes. And one, I think, watching the clock for 15 minutes is very short. Second, watching the clock isn't good. Third, it's just how you feel. If you feel you can accept it. But here in the NHS in Britain, if you're a British listener to this, then I found that that's too prescriptive. And I think if you can accept it and be there and be calm, then fine, stay there. If you don't, and you're really getting fed up with it, get up and watch a nature program or a repeat of something funny like Dad's Army, British people know what I'm talking about here. Coronation Street, one of our great soaps. That'll make you fall asleep, maybe, or just relax.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think you touched upon an important point there is we can't be too prescriptive, as providers or as coaches. It really has to be a two-way relationship. And so, for example, myself as a coach, if I'm working with someone and they've been getting out of bed for a couple of weeks and they're really struggling with it and they feel it's not helping, then, that's when we can modify things and say, well, how about about we try just sitting up in bed, just removing you from that sleep, I like to say going from sleep mode to wake mode. So when you're lying down in bed, that's sleep mode. But when you're sitting up in bed and reading a book or something like that, then that's your wake mode. And then when you feel relaxed and sleepy, then you can lie back down. So you're still kind of trying to avoid associating lying down in bed with all these negative emotions and wakefulness, but you're not actually forcing yourself to get out of bed at the same time. So just staying really prescriptive and saying, no, you must get out of bed no matter what. It doesn't work for everyone, and it's really important for providers and people that have insomnia when they're looking for providers or working with people, to express your concerns, because it really should be this collaborative relationship with whoever you're working with, and there should be modifications made and there should be consideration to your own circumstances being made, because otherwise it makes it hard to progress when it feels very top down. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. Everyone's different. That's the approach they have in Britain. Unfortunately, they insist on you getting out of bed after 15 minutes. It is quite nuts, but that's what they say. Colin Epsey's books goes on about that. Also in his book he says, oh, if you don't worry, you'll sleep in the end. They go, no, actually, Colin, I have nights where I know for a fact I don't sleep at all, as I know many other people on your forum have. So that's not right either. You will sleep in the end. No, not necessarily, Mr. Epstein. But unfortunately, this is the approach the NHS in Britain has. But I think it's right. You've got to either accept, either or. Sometimes in the middle of the night now, I might be awake for it, but I'm much calmer about it now. I'll just get up and watch bit of TV, after half an hour, I'm fed up with it. But sometimes I can just lie there and accept it. Usually I do the latter. But then I am much more on the road to recovery, and it's much easier when you're on the road to recovery to just accept it. And the other thing, of course, is to do. I really agree with this reducing the stimulus in the evening. I don't look at any computer screens. I do watch TV. I find that makes me fall asleep. I have a nice warm bath. I have a relaxing time. I don't do anything. I won't watch a thriller or anything like that. It'll always be something lay back, And if I go out for a night out and I'm chatting with my mates and have a few drinks, I'm very wired. Then sometimes I have to come down and just chill out and watch TV for an hour. And if that takes me till 2 a.m. in the morning, well, so be it. That's the way it is. Just to have that calm down. That's important for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people with insomnia, because they're fed all this sleep hygiene advice, which we know for a fact doesn't work for people with chronic insomnia. It's kind of, they've moved past that. Is they have this fear or concern about things they're allowed to do in the evening. I want to watch TV. I used to love watching TV before bed, but I can't do that anymore. That's a common question. That's a common statement I hear. So then I say, well, why can't you watch TV anymore? Oh, that's what I read. The sleep hygiene advice says you can't watch TV at night. And, it really doesn't matter what you do at night. I'm a big fan of that, roughly like a 1 hour buffer zone before you plan on going to bed, but all you do during that time, no specific activities. It's just anything that you find relaxing and enjoyable. So if that's watching TV, great. Like you said, probably not a good idea to watch like a thriller or something that's going to be upsetting. But anything that you enjoy, if you enjoy watching that. I had a client that used to love painting, and she stopped doing that in the evening because she became concerned that would be too, cognitive. It would cognitively arouse her, it would keep her mind active when she wanted it to be winding down. And so these are all understandable why we would do these things, but we're kind of taking away all those things we enjoyed in response to the insomnia in an attempt to make it better, but it just makes us more miserable, and that actually makes our sleep worse. I haven't really changed that much. It's just chilling out and watching TV, but you can't be too prescriptive. I think having a big meal as well late, but it's whatever works for you, but I don't do too much. I've got to say as well to people as well, you often get this advice in our quality newspapers. I'll often have a whole big thing about sleep. Here we'll have it in the Times or the Daily Telegraph, and you might have it in the New York Times or whatever. And all that stuff. Just don't read it, because most of the advice in there it's really Noddy and Janet and John stuff. And for people who've got real insomnia, most of it is rubbish. And they often conflate
insomnia with people who don't get enough sleep, who don't get enough sleep because they're too busy working, and they don't understand the difference.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just say, do you really? I wouldn't read it. People sometimes, my aunt sends me this stuff, something in the Daily Telegraph. Here's something, I'll post it to you, because she doesn't do the internet. I get it, and most of it, I've read it all before. Most of it's freaking crap, particularly this bit about, you got to have 8 hours of sleep. Well, that's nonsense anyway for most people, certainly of my age. They don't need it. It's rubbish.
Absolutely. You know, I have a lot of conversation with colleagues of mine who are also believers in CBT-I, and we get so frustrated because we always get this influx of emails whenever this sleep article hits the media and gets picked up, you know, and it's really problematic because it kind of feeds into all these sleep-related worries and anxieties that people with insomnia have. And we read these articles and then we become more worried. And the problem is when I talk to the authors of content like this, they tell me, well, look, I wasn't aiming this at people with insomnia. I'm aiming it at people that are kind of burning the candle at both ends. You know, they're not getting enough sleep, but that's because of their lifestyle choice. But the problem is they're not the people that are reading these articles. The people that are reading these articles are the people with insomnia. And they don't want to be reading stuff that says if you only get 7 hours and 30 minutes of sleep, your chances of diabetes goes up or something like that, you know, because first of all, that's just going to lead to more worry. And second of all, the way the media kind of quotes these research articles, it's a little bit manipulative. I'm going to say it in a way, like the way they interpret the results, because at the end of the day, not one study has found that chronic insomnia causes any specific health problem whatsoever. You know, so sometimes they'll find associations, but these associations could be caused by anything. You know, it's kind of like saying that we found the people that have ashtrays in their houses are more likely to get lung cancer. You know, so and then they'll start writing headlines, ashtrays cause lung cancer. You know, just because there's that association, but there's never, to this day, and I don't think there ever will be, this research study that comes out and says chronic insomnia causes this. You know, because it doesn't exist. And this idea that we all need 8 hours of sleep, I have no idea where this has come from. No idea whatsoever. And everyone that I talk to that works with sleep patients, they don't really know either, like where this whole myth that we need 8 hours of sleep comes from, because we all have individual sleep requirements. And one person might do great just getting 5 hours of sleep every night, whereas someone else might need, let's say, closer to 9. But the average, when we wire people up to all the machines, is normally closer to like 6 hours. So where we got this idea that we all should be striving for 8 hours is completely beyond me. And as soon as we strive to get more sleep than we need or more sleep than we're actually capable of, often that can actually trigger sleep problems.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Oh, and there was one more thing I wanted to just highlight that you said, you know, was I liked, if I'm struggling with sleep, I might get out of bed and watch TV. It kind of reminded me of what a client told me, and they have this acronym, okay? It's called WWANSD, and it stands for What Would a Normal Sleeper Do? So anytime she's struggling with sleep, like in bed struggling with sleep, she thinks, okay, what would a normal sleeper do? And so in her mind, she's like, well, a normal sleeper surely wouldn't still be in bed tossing and turning, fighting with the bed sheets for 3 hours. They'd probably get out of bed, maybe watch TV or read a book or something like that. So that's kind of her attitude. She's had this mental shift. And I think that's really interesting and really helpful too. Yeah,
absolutely. That's totally true too. Yeah. You've got to ask me about obsessiveness is interesting though, and I'm a bit... Yeah, anyway, go on. I'll let you ask the question. I know that's one of the things you...
Yeah, go on. So let's talk about this, because this was one of the reasons, actually, why I was really keen to get you on the podcast, was because you felt that you had this realization or this epiphany, this moment of discovery where you related kind of like an obsessive personality, or maybe like a very ambitious personality trait with insomnia and sleep problems. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, because I'm quite a successful person, so I'm quite well off, and I've got the author of this book and everything, and I've done okay in life, quite, but so that's good. So that's interesting. And I got thinking, particularly when I read your forum, I got the impression, because you can tell by the way that people write there, that most of them can write proper English, even if they're American. No, but they can write proper English, and they're intelligent people, and they're probably quite successful, but they might be quite controlling with it and obsessive. Now, so here's the thing with me. So one day I was running in the park. I just finished my run, and something hit me. I thought, hang on a minute. There's been other times in my life where I've been, because I was thinking about sleep a lot. But this time I was starting to get better, actually. I was already on the road to recovery. And I thought, there's been times in my life when I've been obsessed about stuff. The moment it was obsession about the sleep and thinking about it and researching it and worrying about it. I hadn't slept the night, what's going to happen, and had I lost the ability to sleep and all this stuff. And I thought, gosh, there's been about 4 or 5 other times in my life at certain times where I became obsessed about other things, and I focused on thinking about it and wasted some small chunks of my life being like that. And so I just thought, it suddenly hit me one day at the end of this run, and I thought, gosh, that's it, and there's this element of controlling, because I'm quite successful, quite controlling in my life. People meet me and and they think I'm quite funny and they're quite laid back. Well, actually, I'm quite driven, actually, and my people are very close to me, like my wife and my best friends might see it, other people wouldn't. But also, it borders on sort of being a little bit obsessive. And I'd say my brother and my father are both had strong elements of OCD, as is my son too, actually. And I think it's sort of a trait. But once I realised that, and how obsessive and controlling I could be, and focusing on something, sleep, and thinking about it all the time, that was a big chunk to my road to recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I see as well. And again, it's one of these things that when you kind of scratch below the surface and think about a little bit more, it does make a lot of sense. Because let's say that we want to get ahead in our careers, we'll retrain maybe, we'll go to school, we'll study, we'll work hard, we sacrifice a lot of things because we get really focused on this end goal. We can control our own destiny in that regard. But when it comes to sleep, we're struggling with sleep, we're having a hard time with sleep. It makes sense that in our experience, when we've really focused on something and we've kind of made that our goal, we've got there. So then we focus on sleep, we become really obsessed with sleep, we think about all the things we can do to fix the problem, and we try and control sleep, but sleep doesn't work that way. It's probably one of the things that works best the least attention we pay to it. It's the complete opposite. It's, you can kind of compare it with becoming healthier, say losing weight or exercising more. You do that by eating healthier foods or eating less or getting more physical exercise in, and then you'll reach your goal. But with sleep, if you try and control it and you kind of implement any kind of sleep effort, it makes sleep almost impossible. And so that's why I think that these professional people, these very highly driven people, tend to perhaps struggle with insomnia more than others.
Yeah, I totally agree with it. And actually, I think there must be somebody would study that. I think there's something in it. And certainly reading the people who suffer from it's about real insomnia where people don't sleep at night, and looking at some of the people who go and comment on your forum are like that. This isn't just mucking around insomnia. This is real. This isn't like, this is proper insomnia. And they all seem to be quite, I get the impression they're quite successful, but they're also probably maybe quite controlling if they're honest about it. And that's why the elements of mindfulness involving not controlling, being in the moment, trusting in yourself, acceptance, letting go, although seem contrary to the Anglo-Saxon world, our world of work and being driven. It's something not bad about just giving yourself a bit of a break, actually. And it actually makes you, ironically, more successful, even more, because there are times we need to just let back, ease back, not control, be in the moment, trust ourselves. And that's why I think mindfulness and ACT, just the general elements of
Yeah.
mindfulness on a very flat level. Adds to and complements CBT-I, actually, cognitive behavior therapy and sleep restriction. I think it all goes together. But it's important, though, for people who are very controlling to let go and be accepted.
I think just whilst you were saying that, I just had this thought. One reason as well is why this obsession can be a problem, or like when we're really highly driven individuals, why that can be a problem is because so many of the times in the past when we've tried to reach a goal, we've been successful and we've reached that goal because of our efforts. And then when we try and transfer that to sleep, we try to do, I don't know, we implement a technique or a behavior to try and improve our sleep. When it doesn't work, then we become really worried, because anytime we've focused and tried something in the past, we've been successful. But now when we've applied this to sleep, suddenly it's not. And I think that can really lead to this worry. Oh, well, I must have lost my ability to sleep then. There must be something seriously wrong here.
Yeah, exactly. Because we in our lives and our business lives, we're trying, I'll try it, it didn't work, and I'll try B, and eventually you do something that works, and you get to where you want to be in your profession, or maybe you do something else. And my career took a lot of different paths. In the end, I got to where I wanted to, got successful. To sleep though, it doesn't work like that. You can try all the tips and techniques you get in your Sunday papers in the long article about sleep, but they probably won't work for you anyway, because they're not designed for proper people with real insomnia. And you get frustrated because it defines control, doesn't it? It's one of these things, and that's the paradox. It totally defines controlling. And when you realise this, and if you realise you're obsessive and a controlling person, just the realisation of that is one of the big things for me, along with, like your comments, you will sleep in the end. It's natural as a core biological function. But realising the obsessiveness, big part of getting better. And now it's 101 days since I had a nil sleep night.
That's awesome. So yeah, and I think you touched upon this earlier. You can just give yourself permission to have that bad night. If you're finding a night where you're struggling, that's okay. Just give yourself permission to have a bad night, rather than always trying to control it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I do now. And sometimes. You never know, it might come back. I don't know if it does, but I will always get sleep in the end. Mm-hmm. And I think knowing that, because I have had periods where I got better, and it's not as long as this. This is a really long period now. Hopefully it'll never come back, but if it does, I know I will sleep in the end. I haven't lost my ability to sleep. Mm-hmm. And as long as I don't realise I can't try to do too much controlling, and, then of it, then I'll be, I think in the long run I'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the right attitude to take. It's so easy to fall into this idea where you kind of feel like you're getting your sleep back on track, but there's always that nagging doubt. What's going to happen? How am I going to react if I have a bad night again? But it's completely normal to have a bad night. Everyone has them. So if like a week down the road, a month down the road, a year down the road, you have a bad night again, it's not a sign that there's anything wrong. It's just to be expected that you're going to have a bad night every now and then. And as long as you don't fall back into that trap of worrying about it again and becoming obsessed and making that your focus, the chances are your sleep will just get right back on track all by itself.
Yeah, occasionally if I've had the odd bad night now of little sleep, it's usually because I've had so much, I just let myself go and I slept too long the night before, like 8 hours or something again. And then usually I'm just not that tired, because I don't need that much sleep, and it just happened that I had to have 8 hours, which is a lot for me. And so the next night, I'm probably not going to be that tired. So don't even think about trying to get to sleep much before 2 a.m., as you probably won't. And I really, watching your body really, but without an over-obsessive, controlling way. I do think this controlling obsessiveness is a part of it for us who struggle.
Yeah,
really do.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And also, when you have those bad nights, is just what you just described. Just recognizing any external cause, not spending a lot of time dwelling on it. Maybe just like a few seconds. If you have a bad night, was there anything obvious that could have caused this? Maybe you had a tight deadline at work, or maybe you've been out with friends that night, or you watched a horror movie or something. And if there's that external cause, then you know that that was the problem. But at the same time, if sometimes there isn't, sometimes our bodies just decide, you're not going to get much sleep tonight, and there's nothing we can do about it. So it really is a case of just kind of accepting and trusting that the amount of sleep that the body generates for us in any given night is the amount of sleep that the body is just determined that we need on that given night.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time thrashing around trying to find causes of it, and there wasn't necessarily an obvious cause when I was really bad, but that was because I was so worried about it and trying to control it all the time that that was creating the problem. But of course, the big thing was realizing I would sleep in the end. It would come. And actually, you know what, Martin, I could often get a lot of things done, despite the fact I had bugger all sleep, or sometimes little sleep, no sleep sometimes. I could get a surprising amount done, actually. I could still get through stuff. And it wasn't as if I'm self-employed, I have to say. I'm a bit fortunate in this regard. I could have I could ease back a bit, but usually I have to go to work, but I still get quite an awful lot done, as much done anyway as I would probably in a normal day. So it would be okay. Sometimes the only thing that might affect me if I had a nil sleep night was I didn't feel like going out the following night on a social occasion. And occasionally that was hard, and sometimes I had the odd time when it was very bad I didn't do those things, but I tried to just push through, as best I could. But I can get a surprising amount done.
I think that's a really big insight, because when we have insomnia, we really kind of look to see the negative impacts of sleep on our day, when really it tends not to have as big of an impact as we think. And this is one reason why I really encourage people to try not to modify their day in response to a bad night of sleep, because when we do that, when we call in sick or if we cancel plans with friends, we're basically guaranteeing that bad night of sleep is going to have a negative impact on us. Whereas if we just try and go about our day as normal, it will probably be a little bit more difficult, no doubt about it. I'm not trying to downplay this, but we might notice a few good moments. We might notice an okay moment, or a moment where we smile, or where we laugh, or a really productive moment, or that breakthrough at work. And that can just remind us and reinforce the idea that our day isn't completely dependent on our sleep. We can have a really bad day after a great night of sleep, we can have a good day after a really bad night of sleep too.
Yeah, or an okay day. Yeah, and actually, one of the things I think sometimes was, even when it was really bad, I'd have to say a night of nil sleep, and then the next night I'd always sleep, and I'd often feel, gosh, I feel so so good, and so grateful for that, and obviously, and look around and see all the beauty in the world, and get on the park and really enjoy, and just. Yeah, I'm still okay, So it actually made me appreciate life a bit more, rather than just taking it for granted, actually. It's a bit like, and so now I'm feeling much better. I really take things for granted, and just so grateful that, it's back normal, and knowing that, this thing is this curse, or this obsession is all it is a bit of an obsession, really. And, I do think it's important to realise that people don't, for me, I'm sleeping well, 5.5, 6 hours is fine, and I feel great, and I really don't need any more than that. And if I try to, I just lie there. So it's crazy to want any more. And I've long since I've realised that for quite a long time anyway, because that's all I've ever really had anyway, even since I was about 18, 20. So I never really slept that much.
Yeah. So are there any techniques, like either from CBT-I or ACT, that you're still regularly implementing, or is it just a case of you're really not doing anything, not really thinking about sleep anymore, and you're just kind of going about, just listening to your own body in terms of when to go to bed and when to get out of bed?
There's a wind down routine. I tend to stick to that. Not over obsessive, and I won't go to bed at a certain time. It's roughly, around about between 11 and 12. But if I'm out with some friends until 2 a.m., fine. I don't change my life.
Right.
I have a little wind down, and I have a warm bath, and just do all that, and I just sit down, chill out on the sofa, watch TV, often fall asleep, and stay on the sofa. This is quite important. It's very comfy, and I don't necessarily go to my bed. And if I stay there and I'm all night, it's okay. And I think that's fine. And that's the big thing. And so if I'm in bed or I'm on the sofa, as long as I get the sleep, it's fine. Whatever. There's other times you can go to bed and do the things that we'd like to do in bed. There's other times for that. So I do that, and I always think that realizing, as I said before, you will sleep in the end. It's a natural function. If I don't sleep one night, I'll sleep the next. I haven't lost it, and I realized that from what you said. Eventually, from my own experience, the importance of realizing about that I'm a kind of controlling person. I think a lot of people with really bad insomnia are, and to accept and be in the moment, all the mindfulness stuff. I really think that John Kabat-Zinn, the 7 Attitudes of Mindfulness YouTube is brilliant. You don't have to learn all about mindfulness. Just listen to that. That's all it is. That's all it is. Don't bother going on. Well, if you want to go on an 8-week course, it's very relaxing. But that's his thing. Explains it. CBT-I. Keeping a diary was good. I did that, and I occasionally do it now, even when I'm really well, just to realise how good life is. Sleep restrictions sometimes. Yeah, I try to keep my sleep down to. If I am tempted to keep on for more than 6 hours, I try and force myself to get up, have a cup of tea, because if I sleep too long, it might be the next night might be a problem. So those are the things I do.
Yep.
And also avoid reading any nonsense in our so-called quality papers about sleep, because most of it is rubbish.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, absolutely. I was keen to ask you that question because a lot of questions I get, a question that I get quite often is, do I have to follow these techniques or these rules for the rest of my life? So I try and explain that, no, they're more just, we use them because they will help get your sleep back on track in the shortest time possible. But as your sleep improves in response, that's not something that you have to follow for the rest of your life. You don't have to follow that prescribed out of bedtime, or even the 1 hour wind down time, or avoiding naps if you don't want to once your sleep improves. But the great thing about the techniques is that should your sleep ever become a problem again in the future, because you're now familiar with the techniques that worked for you in the past, you can just kind of pull them out of your back pocket and just implement them again in order to get your sleep back on the right track.
Correct, yeah. Listen, and also I have to say, in terms of I don't practice mindfulness. I don't sit down and have 10 minutes mindful time. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm too driven and I'm too much going on, and my mind is always whizzing around. But I just, what I do is I will say sometimes, I've done quite a bit today. Yeah, and I could do that as well. But you know what? I'm sorry, I'm going to finish at 4 today. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to just give myself a bit of a break and chill a bit, because there's always another day. And I'll say that's the only thing I do. But I wouldn't say I'm very on Zen-like, really. But I have cut myself a bit of slack. I think people should do that. If they just get that from mindfulness, that's enough. They don't need to go on a long course, but just give yourself a bit of a break. And but these are things I bring back. And you're right, though. You can dig them out. You know what they are, and use them where appropriate. Some of the people recommend in your book, that book by Guy Meadows, that's pretty good. But that's basically mindfulness acceptance, really, combined with CBT-I. But it's all good. And your forum has been good to read from other people's experiences as well. Good supportive stuff there. Sometimes I look at that, not so much these days, now and again.
I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, because I think you've given us this slightly different insight, because we focused on the obsession with sleep and how that can kind of feed into insomnia, and touched upon ACT as an alternative or as a supplement to CBT-I. And I think you've given some great resources. You shared some good resources like the Zen video and a couple of good books. So I'll make sure they get in the notes as well, so people can check them out. So yeah, I really do appreciate you spending the time to come on. Before you go, I know I've taken a lot of your time, but there's this one question that I always like to ask right at the end of all the podcast episodes. So if someone with chronic insomnia is listening to this and they feel as though they've tried everything, they're beyond help, they can't do anything to improve their sleep, what would you tell them?
That's good. I would say sleep will come in the end. Just get through it. Sleep will come. You've not lost the ability to sleep. No one does. And I think that would be the one thing that I would say to them, and to just possibly let go of their need to control it as far as they can. It's not easy to do this, but that's part of it. The sleep will come in the end. It will come, and they haven't lost the ability.
That's great.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us today, David. I think it's been really helpful. I think a lot of people are going to relate to your story, and I'm hoping that it will inspire them and just give them some motivation and give them some hope that just as you got through your insomnia, they can too. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Insomnia Coach podcast. If you're ready to implement cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia CBT-I techniques to improve your sleep, but think you might need some additional support and guidance, I would love to help. There are 2 ways we can work together. First, you can get my online coaching course. This is the most popular option. My course combines sleep education with unlimited support and guidance and is guaranteed to improve your sleep. I will teach you and help you implement new CBT-I techniques over a period of 8 weeks. This gives you time to build sleep confidence and notice results without feeling overwhelmed. You can get the course and start right now at insomniacoach.com/online. I also offer a phone coaching package where we start with a 1-hour call. This can be voice only or video, your choice, and we come up with an initial 2-week plan that will have you implementing CBT-I techniques that will lead to long-term improvements in your sleep. You get unlimited email-based support and guidance for 2 weeks after the call, along with a half-hour follow-up call at the end of the 2 weeks. You can book the phone coaching package at insomniacoach.com/phone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Insomnia Coach podcast. I'm Martin Reed, and as always, I'd like to leave you with this important reminder. You can sleep.